Hello, I hope you're doing great. Today we are going to give you a small tip on code quality and how to maintain certain standard on your code, right? There are many tips. Today we are just going to see one of those. Okay, so have you ever seen code like this? So see that this code is actually really it has a really weird indentation. And personally, for me, that looks awful, right? Now, that tends to happen for several reasons. Sometimes the projects are configured to work like that by default, right? You can configure the indentation on Visual Studio, actually, right? But depending on your approach, that may cause certain issues or a lot of code differences. Uh, the more developers or members you have on your team, because every single person will probably have their default configuration if they personalize the Visual Studio, right? Um, for me, I usually like to set the default, right? But some other people do not, no, do not, right? If you are working with freelancers, for example, freelancers, they have their own configuration. Sometimes they need to configure certain or set certain specific configuration for their customers, right? So sometimes they need to go and modify Visual Studio, right? And for each um, single project or solution, they work for different customers they have, right? Which is not um, ideal. So the other thing that you mm, can find sometimes is that there are a lot of usings in classes that are not used, for example, and Visual Studio will grade them out, right? So if those namespaces are not being, if the classes in those namespaces are not being used at all in the class or in the file, Visual Studio will grade out that, right? Indicating that that's not necessary and that it will be better to remove it. Now, is it really a problem? It may or may not, right? First, it looks ugly, right? So you can actually remove it, right? Now, for small projects, I don't think it will affect your compilation time, but for big projects, it may. So don't quote me on this. I am not 100% sure. But from what I remember of compilers, you have to do like one pass, two pass, or three passes, depending on how your compiler is configured, how you create it, right? To read the text in your file, parse it, and then create the map everything, what's a variable, what's a method, right? And do all of the compilation of the compilation, right? So in theory, the more lines of code you have in your file, the more time the compilation will take, right? So in theory, if you have lines that are not being used at all, you will be increasing a little bit the compilation time on unnecessary stuff that is not being used at all. So it makes sense to clear them. Also, because it looks better, right? Now, as I was stating before, if you have a team with freelancers, uh, each can have their own configuration, so things can start to get a little bit messy. However, you can actually fix that with a small trick. One of the things that you can actually do is go to your solution, right? You go to Tools, Options, you go to the text editor and the language, right? General, coding style, and you click the generate.editor file from settings, right? You generate it. It will ask you if you want to add that as an item in the solution. I do recommend you to add it so it can actually be checked into the source control. And the editor config basically is a file indicating Visual Studio Editor how it should behave regarding to your code. So if I open this, I will see this table and you will see that now I can modify the indentation size. So I can do things like this, set it to 4, and now I can go analyze code cleanup, run code cleanup, file 1 and solution, and see what will happen now. It should fix the indentation according to the rules that I set in my editor config file. I'll set it again and I'll put it 8. It's way too big, I know. It's just for demonstration purposes. So it was in here. It should leave more spaces in there this time. So you see it actually increased everything and it obeyed my editor config. And what I haven't shown you yet is that it actually obeyed it for all of the projects in the solution. You see all of these are actually recognized as being modified, and the modification is actually the indentation. You see? So I hope this tip has been useful. Please remember, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and invite more people to subscribe. Also, like the videos and share them on your social networks. Have a great day.